joining us for another Gold Mountain Games AMA. We have myself, Rob. If you've tuned into the end of these before, you will know who I am. For those that haven't, thanks for joining us again. And I am the Executive Director of the company. We've then got Jeff.
Hello.
Who is our stream director. So Jeff is in charge of running our stream. He's been working really hard to get that going. We've had the first 2 episodes go out so far, and we've got another coming for you on Tuesday. And then we've got Evan.
Hello.
Evan is our art director. Almost all of the art you have seen on all of our social media comes from Evan and his team. And this is quite an auspicious AMA because we are 6 days away from the launch of our Kickstarter. So what we thought we'd do is go into a bit of detail about what's coming out in the Kickstarter, how we've put it all together, what it kind of, what the process has been, and we're going to take a look at some of the rewards in a bit more detail as well. So to give you a bit of an idea, we are launching on the 23rd. It'll be launching at 5 p.m. GMT, which is noon EST and 9 a.m. PST. I hope I've got those conversions right. We are all incredibly excited by this. We have worked all year to produce this with an incredible team of people. If you want to, there will be a link on our social media, which will let you sign up to the pre-launch page of the Kickstarter. That will let you be notified when it goes live. If you follow our pages, we will of course be letting you know when that is too. What I'll do is I'll give people a few minutes to join because, like me, I got a bit too excited and went into that all a bit too quickly. So we'll give it a few more minutes and then I'll probably say that all again.
Well, and I mean, while we've got a little bit of time to kill anyway, we should mention that the streaming episode that we're going to be doing on Tuesday is going to be a playthrough of a module that we have that we are doing a charity run for, if you wanted to talk about that, because I don't think we can talk about that too much. I'm super stoked that we got to partner up for this, and I think it's something we're really proud of.
Yeah, so we have partnered up with Chris McCauley, who we've worked with a few times. He's actually one of our lead writers. He's incredible talent, Chris McCauley. He writes the Stokerverse. He does a lot of computer game writing as well, and horror writing. And we also teamed up with Claudia Christian, Babylon 5 fame, and she's just had a very successful Kickstarter for a comic as well. So Gold Mountain Games, Chris and Claudia worked together to produce this one shot. It is Christmas holiday season. Kind of, it takes influences from a lot of different cultures around the world and their celebrations from this time of year. And so, yeah, we've teamed up to write this. It has been, again, a lot of the writing was done by our Nell Quinn Gibney, who, if you played our previous one shot, you will be familiar with their work. It's got a lovely cover done by Evan, which is behind Jeff at the moment. The charity that it is going to be contributing to is called the C3 Foundation. They are a charity that help people with addictions, whether that's alcohol or substance. They are doing amazing work, especially at this time of year. It can be a really hard time for people who struggle in that area. And so anything you do give will go towards that charity. We are donating all of our proceeds from December and January through our Patreon. Anything we get from that, whether it's monthly subscriptions as normal or whether it's because you've backed this tier specifically, every single penny or cent will be going to C3 Foundation. And of course, if you back at a higher tier, you will also get the module and all of the other awesome stuff that we've got on our Patreon. Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm going to be running it on Tuesday night. I've adapted it slightly because we're going to be using our characters from the stream who are slightly lower level, and so it won't give away all of the story if you do watch it. So you can watch it and also enjoy the module.
Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't delved too deeply into it because I want to be surprised and everything because I knew we were doing that. But at the same time, it's what I did see of it. It seems like a fun romp kind of a thing, and who doesn't need that this time of year, And I think a lot of people with playing groups that just want a break, or maybe all their players can't make it because of holiday stuff and everything, but a few people are around and they want something to do. I think it's a great little jaunt to go through. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's got a nice little twist in it as well. It's got, as I said, we're drawn from a few different cultures. So there may be some kind of monsters and ideas that not everyone's familiar with. It's a really nice bit of work. I'm quite proud of it.
Yeah.
Lovely. So let's start again with the Kickstarter. If you've just joined us, thank you very much. We are going to be concentrating this AMA on the Kickstarter stuff. We're launching on the 23rd of December, so only 6 days away. We're all really excited. We've done so much work over the last year to get this ready. It's really quite special to us that we're able to share our world and our setting with you all. As I said at the start, we have with us myself. I'm Rob. I'm the Executive Director of Gold Mountain Games. Jeff, who is our stream director, and Evan, who is our art director. So I thought we'd start by going into a bit of the process of building the world, building the actual kind of, not only the kind of cultures, but also the geography of the world, where the influences for that came from, how we tie it all into the various parts of a setting. And I think this is something that's very unique to each person or each group of people when they're designing. But for me, I always start with the map. It gives me a really good sense of what kind of world it's going to be. If you've got, as we've done, an archipelago, that the sea is going to be an important thing, and that will influence everything. It'll influence what textures are available. It'll influence what food. It'll influence travel, every aspect of the life. Whereas if you've got, say, a Pangea, You know that you've got, you're going to have a lot of landlocked areas. And although trade will be important, it's going to be very different trade to all of the shipping that happens around the outside of the giant island than the kind of caravans and perhaps flown trade that you might get on landlocked areas. So once we had the map, or the first iterations of the map, what I did was I placed the species. Now, there was some forethought in that of what the different biomes would do for the different species. And I was also thinking of, this is our first offering to everyone. So one of the things we had to do was fit in the basic species that everyone knows and loves and expects in a D&D world.
Right.
So they were placed based upon a few ideas. So the orcs were placed, and they were orcs because I love orcs, and as it's my world, I was going to put them in there. One of the privileges of writing your own setting is that you can make sure the things that you're passionate about and you have the interest in make it into your world, right? So there was a big bay on the map, and in my head, idea from nowhere went Salt Bay. This is a massive expanse of salt. Something has happened to cause this. And so that immediately put into my mind, well, that means the orcs are going to have salt mines. Salt is going to have incredibly high value because it's flavor. That's what everyone uses in their food. You only have to look at the real world experiences. So you start, as you place all of these different people around the map, you start to kind of build up little bits of culture, not anything concrete, but there are ideas that come and go. And over the course of the next maybe 4 or 5 months, some ideas went, some ideas got strengthened, new ones came up. And it's kind of this constant kind of moving mass of ideas and stuff that, all starts blending together. Then what I did is I handed out these species to the various writers. So I took the orcs, the trolls, and the goblins. I think, Jeff, you started with the gnomes and halflings.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
Our writing director took the dwarves, and I think we've got another 2 writers. Someone took the goblins, and I think Jess took the elves. So do you want to talk a bit about the goblins and the halflings, Jeff?
I think it was, when we were bouncing all of these back and forth, we were trying to come up with unique takes on classic tropes. We didn't want the same thing you find in the PHB or the same thing you find in the movies that we all know and love or anything like that. We were like, what about this world or about this environment would impact them, and particularly develop them in slightly different ways? Nature versus or nurture versus nature. The environment would impact the way they came up, even though they're the same species as what we're used to and everything. So kind of just taking those ideas and trying to run with them, and Also with the more collaborative mindset that we've gone with the island structure, not having these little isolated, all the trolls live here and here and all the dwarves live there and there, and ne'er between the two shall cross unless it's at the taverns that are on the roads and the wayside, because no one wants to live with each other. This is a very old land. There are established cities with districts and neighborhoods and all kinds of cross species uh environs. And so just taking a lot of that and kind of putting it into my brain, like if I was playing a character of this species, like what's their personality, where are they coming from, what's going on with them, and kind of backing that into, you know as opposed to my normal thing, which would be to take a species of a character and try to make something unique about them that's like, well, they're not their typical whatever, trying to do it in reverse.
Yeah,
And being
absolutely.
like, what is the atypical halfling in this environment, and how do they look? And the same thing with the gnomes, kind of taking their innate curiosities and understanding of how things work and are put together, and kind of going, well, instead of classic tinkerers and arcanists and mechanists and everything, these are arcanists. Like, they can't help but be curious about what magic is and how it works and why it doesn't work in some instances. And, well, you say you have to do this and this and have 3 pieces of toast in order to make this spell work. Well, what if you don't? How else could you make it work? Can you make it work? And kind of running with those kinds of ideas to just try to take a tangential line, more of a what if than
Yeah.
no, this is how it is, and just ramming it down people's throat. So
Yeah, and I think we as a company have this idea that everything has to be linked, because it would be, and everything has to everything has to make sense. I never wanted to be like, oh, here's an idea, we're gonna put it into our world and we're not going to explain it and we're not going to explore the effects of it. So you look at one of the things that came out from the halflings was that the halflings have this natural affinity for bureaucracy. They have
right.
this idea that they are good at managing and keeping things controlled and all in order.
Mhm.
And so they automatically became the bureaucrats of the cities. And because there's not this kind of warring nations,
Mhm.
you'll see that most of our cities have halflings in them in the middle management positions. Um,
Mhm.
and then we thought, well, that how does that work if you're not living in a city?
Right.
How does that? And so then, well, that spread to agriculture then. So actually, that then became that the halfling part of the land kind of became the breadbasket of Oscana, because they were so organized, they were so good at it.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that on the map they had lots of big lakes in there in their kind of where they mainly live.
Mhm.
um
No, and that's more of what I was, that what if factor in there, because
yeah,
like in other settings, a lot of times everybody pigeonholes halflings as like merchants and the business class and everything, because they're so good at organizing the books and making numbers dance and everything like that. It's like, well, what if they had those same skills, but at some point they applied it to just societal interworkings
absolutely.
instead of their own business and their own finances and things. And it just made sense. I remember being in a discussion chat and we were talking that through, and it's like, yeah, that's actually, it you entirely can back up in the history of the peoples and see how just one little divergent stream could change that expectation and that trope and that societal niche from being focused entirely on the self or in the clan or the family to being just for everything and just making sure everything works for everybody. So
exactly. And I think as we have Evan drawing one at the moment, it's probably worth touching on the Dragonborn. Now, we've kind of skipped over a bit about the gods, in inverted commas, of this land. But one of the things I was quite keen on from the very start was that this is an evolved land. This is not a land, and the species aren't created by gods. So that brought a really interesting idea into play, that Dragonborn would be lizard-like. Now, I had seen some of Evan's ideas about Dragonborn a long time ago from other conversations we had had, but they slotted in so well to this world that we had to go with it. And I love them. I think they've gone from being that kind of stocky, hardy, fully kind of like bulwark. Everyone kind of always automatically some kind of paladin or fighter or cleric. You've got the look and the physicality that would fit all of the classes. And I think that really opens up everyone's options, because of course you've always been able to play a rogue or a wizard Dragonborn if you want to, but it always felt like you were purposefully doing something they weren't supposed to do. And now I think it's much more natural. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Evan. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Just kind of on that. So like right here, this little doodle on the side is kind of how I was imagining more of their physiology. And so like some of the things that I would call out are these actually very vulnerable, very thin midriffs. And so whenever I tend to draw Dragonborn and design like their costuming, often this is like really heavily padded in fur and some kind of wrap, because this is arguably the most sensitive part of their anatomy. And then the other aspect of that would actually be their necks, which I've deliberately made very, very long. And I think that's specifically what Rob is referring to as far as their lizard-like appearance. And so I've actually had a lot of fun in the past designing different ways. Like how would you design armor as a regular commoditized modular thing for a creature with a neck structure like this, or this kind of physical structure. And so it's been really fun to determine different ways to approach collars and how that would affect basic fashion, certainly armor, and how that would affect protecting something as long and vulnerable as a lizard-like neck. And so these kind of considerations have been a lot of fun in helping the Dragonborn sort of develop visually. And here was one of the very first that we did. And she's a lot of fun. I really enjoy how she turned out. If I were to redesign her, which I probably will, there's a lot that I would change about her costuming. But she really helped nail down a lot of the sort of the physical weight and direction of the Dragonborn.
Yeah, and I think this kind of brings us quite neatly on to one of the things I enjoyed doing most during the writing process, which was developing these culture packets. So these were, we sat down and we went, right, where is this species in the world? Right, let's go for the elves. So we've got the elves who live in, or we've got the field elves who live in grassland. So what have they got to build with? Well, they've got reeds, they've got mud. So are we looking at wattle and daub buildings for the elves? Okay, so how do we make that elven? So we have the elven cities and towns are still beautiful. You would still recognize them as elven, but how do you adapt that for the materials that they have? If you've not got elves who build everything out of fine metal or wood. And then we had a look at, okay, so what materials might they have? Well, they're going to be able to hunt the animals, so they've probably got a lot of leather. Now they'll probably also be able to trade and import from the forest elves, and they're near the goblins, and our goblins are kind of mechanical mining. They produce a lot of the heavy kind of construction metals. So actually there would be ease of trade. And then, so what would they eat? So you're going to have a lot of probably quite a meat rich diet because of all the animals in the plains, but you're also going to be able to make things, lots of empty flat space means you're going to be able to grow a lot of grains. Probably hemp as well. So they're going to have good rope. They're going to have, all of these small little pieces of information that actually went to produce these really important packets of data that everyone could use when they were producing the next thing. So the artists use it for knowing what colors they're going to have, what style of clothing, what material of clothing. When we're designing magic items, we're going to have there's going to be these materials to make them off. This is what their kind of nightlife is like. So they might have items that do this, or they might be short of a type of resource. So we'll have a magic item to fulfill that need. And I think overall what's happened is, because we've worked in this way through the whole process, we have a very alive world, one that feels like people are living in it. And I'm incredibly proud of that. I think it feels special.
Yep.
Excuse me. So one of the things I thought we could go into a bit more detail about. So on the Kickstarter, we're going to be showing you immediately quite a few of the things from the book. We're going to have 3 species, 3 subclasses, 3 magic items, and 3 monsters that you'll be able to, it'll be in the campaign description, and you'll be able to kind of see what they're about and how they work straight off the bat. So one of the ones we're doing, and we've talked about them briefly, is the Dragon Ball. So we're going to be, as I said, there you will have all of their stats, all of the, you will be able to see the layout and how it's going to look in the book. One of the things that kind of defines the Dragonborn in Oscana is that they are kind of responsible for defending the northern coast of the island from this yearly incursion from the sea by creatures called the Swarm. So this has meant that on a relatively kind of peaceful island, we still have a very martial group. And just as the halflings are a bureaucratic group, as a generalization, the Dragonborn tend to make up, a decent proportion of guards in a lot of the cities. They tend to take on the roles of kind of any kind of police forces. They will be kind of any kind of defensive or kind of excursionary force to defend or go and kind of deal with monsters. Will usually have a Dragonborn contingent in it. What they also do is part of a Dragonborn's coming of age is being sent to a distant part of Oscana and doing kind of military service or guard service. And this has meant that, yes, they are a more traditionally kind of martial group, but actually they have a real invested interest in culture. They almost every single Dragonborn has been and traveled the island and then come home. So they bring back all of this interesting food. They bring back different music, different cultures, different kind of art styles, and it enriches them, and it gives them more than one note. And they are, again, I'm very proud of the Dragonborn. I thought we would then go on to one of our subclasses, and this one was Jeff's idea. So I will let Jeff talk about the Circle of the City Druid.
Yes. I was like, wait, which one are we going at? Oh yeah. Well, it was part of the trick of basically all of the things that we were developing. We had some things that were passion projects that were like, what I've always wanted to see. I've always wanted to see this, or I've never seen anyone do this, and I've always thought that was a piece we were missing. And that's where a lot of this stuff came from. And then, the next layer down would be what's missing? Like what, of all the stuff that's out there, because, Dungeons and Dragons and 5e specifically have been around for long enough. There's a lot of material out there, some of it better than others. I think ours is some of the better, but that's just me. But yeah, just trying to be like, what kinds of things haven't been addressed, or what kind of fun niches can we fill? And one that I had thought of at a time at one point in a campaign, but then we never ended up running, was doing like an urban druid, because even in any of us who live in large cities or urban areas, we know there is still a lot of wildlife in there. And so these are the ones that tend to that wildlife that's trying to make its way in these settings where the intelligent species have kind of dominated and taken up all of their normal natural habitat. So now they're stuck making do with what's left. So, I was picturing these druids having huge planter boxes full of herbs and vegetable gardens where they could find enough arable land in a back alley to grow out of, and tending to the more scavenger animals, your raccoons and your rats and your possums and your stray dogs and things of that nature. And then
I was just gonna, sorry to interrupt, Jeff, but
yep.
Evan's just put up some of these were some of the first kind of ideas from the artists about what the urban druid could look like. And as you see, we've got like the one at the bottom's got the plants in the pots hanging from it. We've got the one above that's kind of, you've got that plant forcing its way through the cracks to survive. And just that whole idea of that kind of perseverance of nature through kind of the sentient species taking over an area.
Well, and just, also just giving that option for if a game master is wanting to run a game that is in an urban setting, or doing just a lot more adventures in cities and in dungeons and stuff, to where you're not spending any time really out in the woods or on the ocean or out in the tundras and stuff, where somebody might have created a druid and gone, well, great, I don't fit in here anywhere. I can make good berries for everybody, and I can change into a bear and fight things, but I'm not really taking care of my area of responsibility while I'm adventuring with you guys. So
Yeah.
this is kind of giving that option to be like, look, if you're in a city setting and you're doing more of a city campaign, it totally makes sense that you would have this type of a person that maybe is helping you guys out with that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite things. So one of the very first things we did as a company was create. Well, not create, but we took inspiration from I think it's a British. I should probably know considering that's where I live, but kind of folk tale of a creature called the Enfield, which is head of a fox, body of a hound, wings of an eagle. And they've kind of become Oscana's. There are version of the actual fox. They are creatures that have kind of permeate the land. They are quite a common sight, but they have adapted to the cities well. So, I don't know whether this is showing my ignorance here. I don't know whether you guys have them much in the States, if at all.
what, Enfields?
Foxes.
Oh yeah.
Foxes,
actually,
yes.
actually,
Enfields, no.
I'm pretty sure you guys only have foxes because you took them from here and brought them over there. But
There we go. Then we learned something new. But like, I think they symbolize and work so well with the idea of the urban druid that it felt too perfect not to have the Circle of the City druid have an Enfield pet. So that's what we've done. It's one of their biggest boons as a subclass is they have this sentient, intelligent creature with them that they're able to control in combat. And obviously as you level up, your Enfield gets more powerful with you. And of course there's no reason why you can't then wild shape into your own creature and have you and your Enfield fighting side by side, which is a lovely image.
Yeah. And it's that's also kind of harkening back to some of the older editions of Dungeons and Dragons, where animal companions were one of the major features of a subclass, or even before they really even had subclasses, that just like a focus kind of thing, where for rangers and druids, having an animal companion that was kind of your you guys just work together, and that was where most of your strength came from, was that bond with them. This is getting a little bit more back towards that, and I was like, that's a really cool way to bring that back in. And there's just so many story opportunities for finding an abandoned pup, or a wounded adult one even, and then the druid nursing it back to health, and then bam, let's run together. This is it. It's you and me against the world, buddy.
And I think we've also got that's something that I'm a big fan of animals regardless, but I think that's something else we've done we've got the Francisca Ranger subclass as well, which has you can, with the Francisca, you can choose. Oh, let me try and remember now. We've got cat, hound, ferret, and rat. I think you can choose as your companion, and when you throw your axes, the Francisca axes, your pet will go and retrieve them for you in combat. So it's then tied into the mechanics that you have another companion that's kind of symbiotic with you almost.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, and I remember when that one first came out, I was like, I was hesitant at the mechanic, but at the same time, then I was like, yeah, but then it becomes like a true like hunting pet.
yeah.
You know, when I think about in real world things where when you go bird hunting and you have a dog that you've worked with and you trained with them and they know just how instinctively to be able to go and retrieve game and to do it in such a way that it doesn't damage them, the whole thing. I was like, actually thematically for that and to give that kind of a feeling to the character, it works great. So I was like, I do like it now. So
also, just we've got quite a few viewers at the moment, I've just been told, which is lovely. Thank you for joining us. If you've got any questions about what we're talking about or the Kickstarter in general, please feel free to ask them. We do have the wonderful Katie, who is keeping an eye on the social media, so we will get the questions through and we'll answer them as we go, if you are wondering anything at all. So yeah, I think that as with everything else, tying it back into the world, and we have a society that's very based in urban. We have very dangerous wilds and very safe cities and towns. So that would naturally mean that there are people who will live their entire life in one city. It also means that trade is really important to get things between these isolated cities and towns. So that means that people have got to defend these roads. There's got to be adventurers and guards for caravans and all of these. It becomes, you've got almost organs of the body of the island with these vital arteries flowing between them that have to be protected.
Right.
And that then ties into, I won't go into too much detail about these other ones. Please back the Kickstarter and then you can find out about them all.
Oh, there he is.
We've got things like the Paladin Oath of Passage. So these paladins are all about keeping those passages between the cities open. We've got the Monster Hunter, which is Ranger subclass. So that, they're all about going out and killing these wild monsters that are jeopardizing the cities and roads. So it's all tied in together. And then what we'll do now, if we move on to one of the magic items, we've got the one I was going to show is Toram's candle, partly because I love the artwork of it. Thank you, Evan. I think that's a lovely bit of artwork. So again, with the items, as I said earlier, we wanted them to feel like there was reason for them in the world, that there was not we need a sword that does more damage. That's a mechanical reason for a magic item to exist. And sometimes that's what you need. Yeah. But also, what items would there be? The people who are powerful enough in this world, what would they have created? So this item is named for Toram, who's one of our, in inverted commas, gods. So these guys are called the Ashani, and they are an ancient race who lived like millennia ago, before the world was an archipelago. It was a Pangea, a single island, and they lived there, and they were incredibly technologically advanced, and they started messing with their genes, and they ended up kind of breeding in a flaw into their genome. So a few of them decided they were going to store themselves away in these pods, and they buried them. And then the civilization went away. And of course, there is much more detail about this in the book. But over the millennia that have passed since that, these technological pods have malfunctioned. And they are now spread all across the Saltreach Isles, buried, so deep under the surface that it's improbable that people will find them. But this malfunction in them has meant that these creatures that are inside them, their ideas, their kind of essence of who and what they were, has spread out into the surrounding lands. So these Ashani affect the island where underneath which they're buried. So Oscana has 7 Ashani they have virtues. And that's part of the reason, or the main reason, in fact, that the island is so cooperative, because there are, all of these positive influences. We've got, honor. I'm going to have a mind blank about what the Ashani are now, which is typical. But basically, there are the 7 virtues, and all of these species kind of work together for the benefit of the entire island. So Toram is one of these Ashani, and he's about. In fact, let me get the document up.
Well, and the thing I love about it is it gives a different take on how, like, the spiritual and magical essences would be influencing the world and everything, instead of just the typical, we've renamed the pantheon of the gods that you would know and love, because we just wanted to give them our own names and appearances and stuff. It was just a different idea of, like, what if this world is really old, and this is just not even the first or second age of this world, but one of the previous ages is influencing this go round.
Yeah, and I think there's this. It's almost an expected thing in fantasy that a god created each different species and put its desires and goals into that species. And I just thought it was interesting to move away from that and do something that's, it gives us a lot more to play with, because these creatures are flawed.
Mm-hmm.
They are not perfect creatures who are all powerful. This is a malfunction that has caused these beings to have some measure of control. And some of the Ashani have no idea what's happening. They're still in stasis. Some of them have slightly awoken and might be, slightly nudging. Some of them, we don't know, might be fully awake in these pods underground. Again, I'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so coming back to Toram's candle, because I found the information I was looking for. Toram is the Ashani who is pushing out prudence into the world. So she influences the trolls a lot. That was kind of, that's the species that takes on the Toram's kind of ideals more than the others. So she's all about foresight, wisdom, and personal discretion. So that's then influenced this candle to be, it sheds a dim light in a 10-foot radius, and any creature within the light radius has advantage on perception checks for the duration. So this is an item tied to the Ashani, tied to the people that are likely to have created it, the trolls. And it all kind of ties in with the idea of prudence, of caution, of kind of slow investigation, or perception in this case.
Yep.
And again, that's something that is hopefully you're realizing is kind of a theme that we have tried to stick quite closely to, of there is reason for everything in this world. So the last thing I thought we'd talk about before we get on to what's actually in the Kickstarter was the saltworm larvae. So as I spoke about earlier, we've got the salt bay, this massive expanse of like solidified salt. And what created that and what is living within it are saltworms. And these saltworms they range from being small, like these larvae, as you can see there, twice the size of a skull, roughly. And they range up to being huge, like this one here. And they are one of the main problems that caravans face as they travel, trying to get this salt out to the world and getting the metals or the coins back to like the other cities. So these guys are an important part of Oscanan kind of life. There will be, it's kind of like a rite of passage for a caravan to have faced a saltworm, and there's kind of like amongst the caravan guards there, you haven't made your name until you've survived a saltworm attack. Of course, many don't survive a saltworm attack.
And most of them that do earn those accolades by running really fast.
Yes. So with the saltworm, we've put in a few. I think we've got three. I think we've got the larvae, the adult, and the brood mother. That might be
correct.
Yeah, that's right. So but
there's going to be a lot more eventually. We will definitely be expanding those and everything because we love them and they're such a core thing.
Yeah, and so we've got this idea that you could be traveling and you may find a small group of larvae, and that's going to be a challenge for a low-level group. Or what you could do is come across an adult one, and now an adult one is a hard fight for like most levels of party. They're quite a high CR. It's going to take some tactical thinking and planning to be able to take on an adult saltworm.
Yep.
But then we've got the brood mother. Now the brood mother doesn't come to the surface. The brood mother is in her lair, surrounded by other saltworms. And so this is going to be it could be an entire adventure hook. It could be, a side quest that if you want to, you can put it into your campaign to go and clear out a saltworm
nest.
Thank you. and so I think again, like we've given a lot of options, and we've tried to think how having these creatures in the world would affect things. So we've got a guild that is specifically to do with caravan protection in the world, because it's just vital. Trade is really important, and if you don't protect it, if there is an organization to protect it, your goods aren't going to get there. Yeah. So, pardon me. What do you get if you back our Kickstarter? We, like most Kickstarters, have various tiers. We've got stretch goals. We've got lots of things in our basic tiers. So we've got PDF tier. This will be everything that you get in the hardback book, just as PDF versions. You will be able to get almost all of the stretch goals as well. In fact, I think it's all of the stretch goals can be converted to digital. And that's, you will get that. Obviously it's cheaper than the physical copy, and you will also you'll get it sooner because it won't have to go to the printers and then be shipped. All of the other tiers have the PDF included in them as well. So, everyone who backs will be getting the PDF copy. That means you get it earlier. It means you can start playing it earlier, and you can, it's always nice to be able to test some things out before you get the physical products, right? And then we've got the tier just above that, which is the book, and just the book. So you'll get that PDF, and that book will have all of the lore that we've been talking about. It's got 21 cities. It's got 24 subclasses. We've got a new class, the Coalescent, which Jeff and I wrote. It's really cool. We're really excited by it. The Coalescent has 3 subclasses on top of the 24 already in the book. We've got over 50 monsters in there, 20 new feats, 4 new backgrounds, 30 new spells, 50 magic items. There are 2 new playable species, the trolls and the corsairs, and we have rewritten all of the other species, including the orcs and goblins, so that they fit into our setting. So you will have them. And we've also got over 3.5 hours. I think it's 3 hours and 38 minutes is the number on my mind, of original music specifically written and composed for our setting. So you'll get that with the book tier up, I believe.
The music is super exciting.
Yeah. So with the music, we were thinking that, we want you guys to be immersed into this world. We want your players to be immersed into the world. And what's more immersive than music? And it's been a really cool journey to experience how it's written, and kind of, because there's lots of things that you don't realize needs to be considered. Like, a session of D&D is 3-4 hours long. So you've got to have music that can be repeated. You've got to have music that is interesting but doesn't pull away from the action around the table. And seeing it all come together has been a great journey. And so we've got things like, again, going back to the culture and making everything tied in together. So we looked at what instruments people might have access to. So you're going to have wind instruments around for the halflings because they live by massive lakes and are going to have reeds to make flutes, etc. As creatures in the savannah are going to have animal skins to pull over drums, so they've got like percussion heavy. What's the difference between orcs who live in the savannah and orcs who live in the on the salt flats? How's that going to affect their music? And our music team has done such an amazing job with it. And you will be able to listen to one of the pieces of music when you back. So you will be able to see the quality for yourselves. So we're really excited about that. I feel like I've spoken far too much. Jeff, do you want to do the next bit about the extra items that you can get?
Oh, well, I certainly can. I just got to pull it up. Sorry.
That's all right.
I want to talk about the music for a second too, though, because I was not expecting when we launched into this project to have it become as expansive as it has. I was really excited when Evan put his art team together and started doing his vision of the way the art all works for the world, and it has its own like personality and style and everything. But then when the music team came together and started doing that, and just talking about how they're like, well, we wrote these pieces, but then we did them in different settings with different instruments for them in order to reflect how the different cultures would play this piece of music, and that they had their own pieces of music to go along with those instruments. I was just like, it's like, I mean, I'm a musician myself, as far as I've been playing trumpet since I was like 10, but I've never composed, and so I don't have that mindset for thinking that deep and that many layers down for it. So it was phenomenal to see that come together, and then to be able to put that in with the book that we were producing and all the lore that we were coming up with, and just building this world out. I was like, this world has layers. This is amazing. So and that music added so much richness to the layers. So so let's see. We had the complete book with all of that stuff. And then we've got the tier where you get all the goodies to go with, like if you're looking to get this and do it as a campaign with some friends or in your local game store or something, this is what I'm looking at that I would want to get for, because you get the book, but we've also commissioned our own stylized sets of dice with our logos on them. So it's not just picking out color schemes or anything. We've actually commissioned the die so that it impresses the GMG logo and the Skana logo on there for your top tier values on each die. We've had a map commissioned of the world that we are getting printed on canvas, so you can have it on the wall behind you while you're DMing, which is awesome. We are getting card decks for items, monsters, spells, and feats. So, when you've got your players at the table and they're trying to put together their folios so they can track all this stuff and everything, you'll be able to have those cards out there, and they've all got art backing on them, and they're looking legit. I'm excited to use those at my table. We've got GMG dice bags to go along with the sets that are coming out. And then we have a customized GM screen that will be, did we go with the 3 section or the 4?
We're doing a 3-section one.
The 3-section. So, 3-section with informational slips to go in them for your charts and your special effects and everything that are specific to the campaign.
And I think one of the things we'll do during the campaign with those is ask the backers what you guys want on those info sheets, because there's nothing worse than going, oh, I always need to look up X and it's not on your GM screen. So
Right.
we will be putting it to you guys and our backers to let us know what you guys want on there.
Yep. Yeah. And then at the top tier, we are going to have our hardcover book done in a leatherette binding with embossment and everything. It's going to be gorgeous. I am excited to have it on my shelf. I'm not going to lie about that. We're doing a larger canvas map in full color for this one. The other one is inked.
Yes,
but this one is in full paint.
So the first map is probably Evan. You're probably the one to talk about.
Yeah, sure.
Of maps.
There we go.
There will be 2 maps. One that will be inked with ink wash, so it will effectively be black and white. Those of you who may not be able to picture that, and this will be a primarily nautical map of the entire world. And then there will be a premium map, which will be both larger and which will feature color inking as well. So it will be a lot of additional detail and density of detail on that map, which will also pay quite a bit of attention to the land biomes, the land features that may not be quite as critical in a nautical map.
Lovely.
I actually knew the answer. I was just trying to prompt the thing. So, and then we're still working on the exterior design work for it, but we're commissioning a wooden box for dice box for the dice sets that are coming, and just really, who doesn't love a good wooden dice box? I mean, that's kind of become the thing in the last few years, especially with certain companies that are making really amazing ones, and we're getting in on that as well.
And I think one of the other things to say that the dice set is going to be an 11 dice set, so you will have your 2d20s and 4d6 with it, because that's what everybody wants in a dice set, right?
Yeah, well, especially because we want, we're trying to launch this thing right, and we don't want to go out on just the minimum for stuff. So I know that was the discussion we had, and we're just like, no, let's do the full set, because that's what people really want, and that's what I really want people to have with our stuff on it. So
and I think so we've also got, like, the premium tier also has some, I forgot what it's called. It's not foil. Pearlescent cards.
Yep.
For them. We've also got some of the much higher tiers, which I'm not going to reveal loads about. You'll have to go and have a look yourselves. But if you fancy coming and playing a game of D&D with me, then that's something that you might be able to get your hands on. You'll have to find out.
Yep. Yeah. There's definitely some fun intangibles there that are worth checking out.
Yeah, and we've also got things like, there are going to be some in-depth interviews going on in the updates. There's going to be more stuff revealed for you guys. We are at the moment we've got the final touches on the video being put together. We've got everything is kind of in the last stages, so that you guys can see exactly what you're going to be getting, and see the quality of it, which I'm really happy with, see all of the lore, all of the thought and hard work that's gone into this, and also, you know, hopefully this is going to be, you know, your guys' campaign for years to come. You know, that's what we want to give everyone is not only, you know, here's a cool D&D book, but this is your campaign. This is you taking players from level 1 to level 20 in our world. Yeah, that's what we want to provide for you, is a full setting that you can do that in. And that's why, you know, I've mentioned this before on other AMAs, but, you know, this is book 1. You know, there is much more coming. There is the whole archipelago that we are going to be exploring. We've already got, you know, quite a few ideas for what other islands we can bring for you. We've got ideas about the other Ashani that are existing. We've got lots of ideas for various new species. And you know, we're really wanting to push for original with it. You know, you may very well get another type of dwarf or another type of elf, goblin, gnome, but you're also going to get a lot of completely original species, classes, brand new subclasses as well. You know, we're looking to really kind of spread out and give you this whole kind of sort of like smorgasbord. It's a probably very European thing, but yeah, a real platter of stuff for you guys to choose from to create the games that you guys want to create.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we haven't touched on is the art book. There is going to be a tier that has a book featuring all of the art, you know, whether that's well, I'll let Evan talk about it because it is absolutely his idea. He's going to be putting it together.
Yeah, so this will be, you can think of it as an art of book if anyone is familiar with those art of Pixar or art of Into the Spider-Verse or art of the Dark Crystal. It's a pretty common format of book, but in this case, what it's going to feature is obviously all of the final art, which will be featured in the source book, in addition to other art, which is not featured in the source book. But beyond that, it will also feature quite a bit of the exploratory art, the early initial sketches or mood pieces, some paintings that were executed to kind of land on a visual idea or a mood for a certain location or a certain species or even a certain moment, but may not have made it into the final book for various reasons. You'll also see how the process really works from an art director point of view. So everything from the moment we get clearance or green light from the writers or lore team on a certain concept, how the art team will explore it, when it actually lands in an artist lands in an artist's lap for concepting, what happens after that phase, when it goes through QA and editing. You'll see that whole process from start to finish, and among that, you know, you'll see a lot of red lines and notes that can be fun to dig into if anyone's into that. All of which have contributed to a lot of the visual identity we have today, and excuse me, and the way our work has really developed. So it's a really good look at behind the scenes stuff. You get a lot of much higher resolution and prestige pieces, like character pieces like these, which will not be in the source book, as these are really relevant to upcoming stream content. So there's a lot of fun stuff to be had in there if you're really into the world, the look, both, hopefully, and where that takes you.
I think as well, like, it's one of my favorite bits of this whole process is that, you know, I remember when we were trying to develop what the elves looked like, Evan, and we got this sheet of 6 or 7 different, like vastly different kind of bone structures, or, you know, with different facial shapes, all of this kind of variation, and actually how we get down into what we're actually going to use is it's an enjoyable process, but it's also a really nice kind of visual journey to follow. That's it.
Yeah, we went through a lot of iterations here. It was a fun process to kind of explore.
Yeah,
and of course you'll get the whole picture as part of the art book.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the art book. So I think that's given you guys quite a lot of overview of what you can expect from our Kickstarter, what you can expect from the content. As I said, we've got so when you have a look at the page, hopefully on the 23rd, you will be able to see the orcs, the dragonborn, the dwarves, subclasses of the fighter medic, the druid circle of the city, the barbarian path of grief, which I've talked about before. I will happily talk about it again for the next hour if you want me to. I love it. It's my favorite. You'll be able to see the Franciscan Axe, Torum's Candle, a Coconut Ocarina. We've got the Enfield Monster, the Saltworm Larvae, and the Mage Eater monsters will be up there. This is the Path of Grief art we've got so far, which is, again, wonderful. Something we haven't touched on, actually, is we've got backgrounds. There are 4 backgrounds coming out. So we've got the salt miner background is the one that's going to be featured. So that's our backgrounds give you a little bit more than you may be used to, but they should really help tie your characters into the setting. We're also going to show you 2 of the 21 cities, so you'll get their full kind of brief and overview. We're going to show you a couple of feats, Forked Tongue and Adaptable Spirit, and you're going to get 3 spells as well. Stool, which I think is my favourite cantrip that's ever existed. You can just make a stool appear, and it's really innocuous and harmless until you think about what you can do when you can produce a stool every 6 seconds. It's great.
That is definitely one of the things that I took a lot of pride and joy in when we were doing magic items and spells and other stuff. You kind of touched on a little bit earlier, talking about how not all magic items have to be just a bigger, badder version of previous ones that are out or that we've all seen before. It doesn't have to be just a sword that hits harder or a thing that makes fireballs bigger. And same thing with spells. And I think the example that I gave early on was treat magic items and spells like apps on your phone. Not everything you develop on there is there to solve all of world problems and everything like that. Some of it is just on there to keep track of where your keys are or something, and you use it every day, and it's like the most useful thing you have. Yeah. So like we have wizards that are gnome sized and troll sized, and they all go to the same tavern to drink, and they all want a comfortable place to sit. So the fact that they have a cantrip where they can make a stool that is exactly the right height for them to sit at the table they're at is exactly the kind of magic that should be developed out there. Like wizards should all be teaching this to their students, because wizards spend hours a day sitting and scribing in books and stuff like that. And everybody's going to have a bad back and neck problems if they don't have a right stool to sit on.
Exactly. And I love little things like that. They just, again, they help to make a world just feel real. And they, you can just imagine a party around the table going, I'm going to solve every single situation in this entire campaign with the use of a stool. And it would be great. So yeah, as I said, you will get a lot of stuff to see when you first come to the Kickstarter page. We want to offer this out to everyone so that you can see the quality of what the rest of the book's going to be like as well. we have, as I say, like we've got lots of stuff going on at the moment. Hopefully, you've seen some of our adverts going out. We got the stream being, it's 7 p.m.
7 p.m. on Tuesdays on Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah. And we've got
time zone.
Sorry, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you. You're right.
Yes. So that's midnight GMT, 7 p.m. Eastern,
4 p.m. Pacific.
4 p.m. Pacific. And it's also up on our YouTube if you want to watch it, not live. Some of us are usually on Twitch if you want to chat to us as you're watching it live. We've also, as I said, we've got the Christmas one shot is out. We've also got the one shot we released in October, that's there. So there's lots of ways for you guys to kind of see what we've been producing. Excuse me. Beg your pardon. And of course, we've got our Patreon. So our Patreon one is where you can get the charity one shot, but it's also where you can get a completely different set of Oscarnan content. So at the highest tier, you get a newspaper every month, you get 3 maps, you get magic items, an encounter, a monster. There's a comic, which the first 10 strips of the comic is free. Then it's going to be included in the silver tier, I believe. So there is almost no crossover or duplicated content between the Patreon and the Kickstarter. So we really think it's great value for money. As I said at the very start, all of our proceeds from Patreon from December and January are going to the C3 Foundation, which is the chosen charity of Claudia Christian. And she is who we worked with and Chris McCauley to produce this one shot. I think we're a little bit early to finish. So if anyone does have any questions, please send them through and we can answer them now. Or we can waffle on about stuff for another half an hour if you want.
I have a question.
Of course.
Shoot. What class do you think this dude is?
Whew. I mean, that could be a Way of the Contortionist monk.
So okay. I was thinking that. Yeah, I was also thinking Soul of the Sea.
Bingo.
Oh, yeah. Oh, see, I wasn't sure if maybe you hadn't decided yet, so you were like taking a poll to see which direction to go in, or if you were just saying if we could spot which one you were doing.
So. I mean, it could have gone either way. I mean, yeah. I don't love being wishy-washy.
I got it. Yeah.
If you'd convinced me, and that's certainly a possibility. We could. We're never too late to switch gears.
I said Soul of the Sea because I can see him. He's on the shoreline and his palm is in the water, and he's kind of drawing water up to use for a spell. That's the kind of image I get. And he's got that kind of tension of a sorcerer. Like in my mind, sorcerers are arrogant and powerful. There's this, wizards are not always, but they tend to be more quieter and a little bit meeker in their knowledge of things, whereas and warlocks are a bit crazy. So I think sorcerers are very controlled aggression, and that's what he's got that for me. Like especially the expression on his face says sorcerer to me.
You and I have met very different wizards and sorcerers. I'm not saying you're wrong. I can totally see it happening, but we have met very different ones.
So the first ever D&D character I played was
Yeah.
an orc sorcerer.
Mm.
She was a very intelligent orc.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in a setting where the orcs were kind of traditional orcs, which I'm very proud and pleased that ours are not. But she was very intelligent and didn't like being part of the orc culture, so she left. And one of the times she came back, she got captured and was about to be sacrificed for we don't know what. And this kind of awakened the sorceress in her, and it exploded out, and she wiped out her village. And it was all of the, angst and antagonism of this destroyed people.
Yep.
But she then went to go and learn about her stuff, what's happened to her, how is she a sorcerer, how does it all work. And she was shunned from a lot of the human and elven cities where she wanted to go to the libraries and stuff. So she ended up disguising herself as a human. And so for like the first 6 months of this campaign, everyone else thought I was playing a human. And they kept being like, where? They started getting really suspicious, because every now and again I'd be like, I'm just going to go off on my own into the woods for 5 minutes and recast disguise self for myself. And they were always like, why aren't you casting spells? And I'm like, don't see the need. And I'm like, I don't have any spell slots left.
Yep.
And then there was this wonderful moment where she, in the middle of a fight, was like, I'm going to let it drop. And it was like, honestly, like 6 months into this campaign, and suddenly, middle of combat, there's just this orc there. It was a lot of fun. Like that's my model for sorcerers.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I'm glad I got that right.
Yep.
So. Oh, we just thought Katie said monk as well.
We'll see. No, that's pretty compelling.
She's biased. She's biased.
Yeah, she is biased. She's playing contortionist monk.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was typing. Oh, she is typing something else.
Anyway.
Well, we're at an hour and a half, so I think we're probably all right to end it here.
Otherwise, we're going to end up rambling and or just doing another sales pitch round.
Yeah, I mean, like I can ramble about my various D&D characters if people really want to hear that. But I think we've given you guys a lot of content this session. There's a lot for you guys to go over and explore. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to talk about our world. And yeah, please do go and check out the pre-launch page on the Kickstarter on Friday next week. Please go and back it. That would be wonderful.
It makes an amazing Christmas present, and it will be available on the 23rd. So,
That's true.
If you've got a nerd,
every D&D can have our Kickstarter for Christmas.
Yeah, because even for those who are not necessarily deep in the lore and know, it is a standalone book. You could run an entire campaign just with our book and everything, but it is also entirely based on the same system that all the other books out there are on for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which is the big one that everyone's playing right now in the mainstream. And so this could just be an additional source book too for all of that new content that we created for our world. Your loved one who plays can just take some parts of that and port it into their homebrewed world. Absolutely. And it's still a huge resource for that. So it's not like a standalone its own game thing where if you have this is all you can play with it. It's not it at all.
Not at all. It can be treated exactly like any other source book. We have designed it so that it is complete and you don't need anything else to play it. However, one of the pleasures of the tabletop genre is making it your own. So and we have provided you with all of the tools to do that. Lovely. So please do have a look at the charity one shot. Please do back the Kickstarter. Please have a look at our Patreon, and please do have a wonderful festive season. The AMAs will be back in the new year, but we will be about on social media and obviously during the Kickstarter campaign. So please do come and join us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.